So, more new things from Rings of Power. Some recently released images on the orcs that will be featured in the show. And as always with this, there's the good part and perhaps not so good part, depending on your perspective. But let's start off positive that whatever else you're going to say about this show, it's going to look spectacular. And for the most part, and that's what I'm going to get to in the second half of the video, it does appear lore accurate, again, for the most part, but there are caveats. They look a little zombified, and that's true. They do look a bit like zombies and the undead, which technically the orcs are not. But overall, probably this is the closest we've gotten in terms of being faithful to the text, because the orcs aren't supposed to be particularly muscular or powerful. They should have thin arms, be not very muscular, and have thin legs, and some of the images do conform to that. In terms of the basic description of the orcs, this is fairly good and fairly accurate, but as always with this, there are going to be a few drawbacks. Some people are noting that the armor may not make sense with the timeline, and that is probably one of the biggest controversial problems that they're going to confront is they are going to play around with the timeline, which, as far as I know, Tolkien was pretty firm on, although, again, there are contradictions with the lore, and he changed his mind on several things, including the dates. So, again, it's not strict, but he did try to adhere to some continuity, at least with the timeline, but there are going to be exceptions. Now, are they taking advantage of that? We're going to have to wait and see. And we don't yet know even the plot or heard the dialogue, so we don't even know what they sound like. Is it going to be sounding too modern? Is it going to sound appropriate to the era? Again, a lot of I don't knows. But I try to be more honest than the others covering this, and apparently some of these images are, yes, wait for it, female orcs. So, what to make of that? Well, some of the ignorant people are saying this definitely breaks the canon, breaks the lore, and confirms the worst fears. Well, I think in some cases, especially with the hobbits, there are definitely legitimate questions. But in most other cases, there really aren't many grounds, at least not yet, that canon is really being directly affected. As far as I know, the contract is they can't directly contradict what's in the appendices of Lord of the Rings, and this does not. In terms of the female orc question, well, Tolkien did confirm that female orcs exist, and broadly speaking, he also confirmed that orcs have to breed in, for lack of a better word, normal ways. In other words, they do have sex, they do have babies. We don't see female orcs directly. He thought that they should exist, but don't really know too much about them. So is this accurate to the lore or not accurate to the lore? It's kind of hard to say because it's a very fuzzy area, but are there female orcs? Short answer, yes. What do we know about them? Not very much. It's very scanty. So, again, are they going to take advantage of this to just be creative or push an agenda, a particularly feminist agenda? Don't know, but again, we're going to have to wait and see. Although I think it would be kind of remiss not to say that it does seem like they're poking the bear, right? I mean, they could have just released the male orcs only, but they clearly wanted to test the waters of what fans would think or want to think about this issue. So the people who don't really know the lore are probably going to start making videos that the female orcs have no place whatsoever in the fiction of Tolkien. No, they clearly do. It's just something he never concentrated on. And if you really do know the lore, you'll know that the question of the orcs is pretty contested. I mean, what the orcs are exactly, we don't know. A lot of stupid people have tried to lately been coming at me saying it's definitely true that they're just elves that were transformed. No, it's definitely not true that they're just elves transformed. What they really are, I'm still working on that. I don't think we really do know what the hell the orcs are. So we're kind of left with a lot of puzzles as to what the orcs are in the first place, much less the male orcs, much less the female orcs. But again, at the general level, the aesthetics look overall pretty good and pretty solid. But yeah, they are taking some liberties in terms of making them more monstrous or kind of a horror movie trope than they really are. So that's not good. But again, the early reception is very positive. But once we're going to get into the details, probably there's going to be new debates about whether this goes too far, whether this lines up even with the movies, which a lot of people think are canonical, even though they're not, and whether this really adds more complications than are necessary to the Tolkien canon, which is already very confusing and very complicated. But overall, yeah, it looks good. Nothing to worry about. And even the gender issue, again, nothing worrisome. But once we're going to get more into the details, there may be issues where that probably goes far beyond the text, and there may be more there may be a more political issue involved than an aesthetic one. But at the first glance, nothing worrisome. But again, I suspect we're going to get a lot of bizarre videos complaining about this not really controversial part of the lore, but I'm going to have to wait and see. And there we are with the first images of the orcs on the upcoming Amazon Rings of Power. Thank you for listening.